Are you dreaming of turning your crochet hobby into a crochet business? When you're just getting started, it's hard to know where to start. But today I'm going to be sharing 5 tips that'll help you get your business started the right way. So by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what steps to take to set yourself up for success in your new crochet business. Let's get into it. Hi, I'm Brandy, the creator of Sunny Stitchworks, and this channel is all about things crochet business, crochet amigurumi, and everything in between. And I'm even going to throw in a tutorial here and there for some really cute patterns that I've created. So if all that sounds good to you, hit subscribe and I will see you in my next videos. Tip number 1, know what you want to sell and why. In the crochet world, you typically start out one of 2 ways: physical items or digital items. Your physical items are pretty much what it sounds like. You're going to be creating and selling physical crochet items that you've created. Now, I want to go over the pros and cons of both the options. So, let's talk about pros for physical items. It can be a lot of fun. You get to do mostly the creation process, which we all love. Who doesn't? I mean, that's why we're here. We love to crochet. So that's what you'll spend most of your time doing. Now, there are some, there is some time spent creating listings and maybe making social media posts, but most of your time is going to be spent crocheting. Another pro I find that comes with this is that sometimes it can be a little simpler to just sell physical items. People know what they're getting, and people often see your work and they love it and they just really want to buy one. So it can be a lot of fun. Now, the cons that I find with selling physical items is that while it is fun to create them, it is very time consuming. So, while I said you're going to be spending most of your time actually crocheting things, you tend to be creating the same things over and over again, which might get a little boring and frustrating at times. And there are going to be times where people may not understand your pricing for those items, which we will get to that later. Now, another con I find about selling your physical items is that you really can't scale. You're only one person and you only have so many hours in a day that you can actually crochet. So that's definitely a big thing to consider, is you will be limited to how many things you can make and sell over time. Now, for digital items, which is my personal favorite, you are creating a digital item that has to do with crochet that somebody is buying. So the biggest thing you're going to find in the digital crochet realm are patterns. That if you make physical items, that is probably where you found your first patterns. Were online, you purchased one and decided you were going to make that item, and maybe people loved it enough that you started selling it. Now, if you're just starting out, I recommend that you start doing a little research into what is involved in creating your own patterns, because I find this option to be a little more scalable and a little more just easy to work into your schedule. I mean, most of us that are just starting out in a crochet business are still going to have full-time jobs, so it's easier to work into your schedule. You work on an item as you have time, and then you create the PDFs as you have time. And that is definitely one of the pros that I find in this. Now, the cons can be that it can definitely take you longer to create a pattern to sell than it can be to actually create a physical item to sell. But the trick to that is that you do it one time. You're creating a pattern once. It might take you a couple weeks, a couple of months to get it done and in a digital format to sell and listed and all that, but you only have to do that one time. So it is actually a time saver when you think about it, and it just can sell over and over again. So you don't have to worry about that anymore. Now, another pro I find with this is that you get to have complete creative freedom here. What I don't recommend doing is creating patterns for licensed characters. I know we all love our favorite characters from video games, movies, TV, anime, but it's really a dangerous game to play. So I recommend staying away from that. And in the future, I will make a video all about information surrounding this issue. But for now, I'm going to leave it at that. So, in my experience, it is easier and more sustainable to create patterns to sell. And just creating an entire library of patterns that you have, it builds up over time. Therefore, your income builds up over time. And it just is really a fun thing to do. You get to be creative. So, if you're really not someone who's delved into the experience of creating your own patterns, I would suggest you follow my channel because I'm going to do a lot more videos surrounding creating your own patterns in the future. So we can get more in depth on that later. But I recommend doing some research and looking into it because it's super fun and I feel like it's a great asset to have in your business. Tip number 2. And this one may sound stupidly simple for most of you, but it is start small and grow as you go. Now, I bring this up because it sounds super simple, but it's definitely a pitfall a lot of us get into at the beginning. We're super excited and we want to start off strong, and it ends up that we get maybe a little bit of ahead of ourselves. So, instead of running out and just buying hundreds of balls of yarn right from the start and just going absolutely crazy with everything, getting your own website from the beginning, just spending too much money right from the beginning on, there's a lot of different things. I could go into a very huge list of all the things that, and I've been there. I am guilty. I have done it. And there's probably much better ways to go about it than what I have. So, what I'm going to suggest is you start small. So, if you're selling physical items and you haven't created your own patterns for those, buy maybe 5 patterns that you feel like maybe you've made already and you're used to making, which will save you time, and that maybe you've gotten some good reaction from your followers on social media or family or friends, and stick to those for a little while and kind of test things out and see what's working the best. And don't go crazy and buy an entire library of patterns right off the bat. Just really find good patterns to start with and stick to a few items. And this also keeps you from buying 100 different colors of yarn. You're sticking to kind of a smaller group of colors that you're using. So it keeps things simple. Now, if you're doing digital items, this is going to be a little different. You obviously are still going to have some yarn involved. So it's kind of the same concept. Starting small would mean don't try to set yourself up to create, 10 different new patterns in a month. Start with 2 or 3, even 1 if you're just starting out. And that saves you on material, it saves you on time, and just lets you focus more on the quality of those items. Making sure your pattern is super readable, super understandable. Learn how to format, learn how to, get your abbreviations just right and your language in those patterns so people find them very easy and people love that. And don't necessarily go out and buy a bunch of super expensive equipment to photograph and do all these different things when you're just starting out. You don't necessarily have to start out with your own website either. Etsy's free, except for some very, very small fees to put your listings on. And this goes for both physical and digital. So, at some point in the future, once things start rolling and you get some traffic, definitely do consider your own website. That way you're not worried about fees and it's your own space and you can do what you want with it and customize it and give it your own, give it your own personality and look. Tip number 3, create a simple but strong brand. Now, this seems to be another pitfall I see where you kind of just starting out and you may not think you need to be branded, but branding can be very important because it attracts the right people to you. And, it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It just means thinking about your actual business name, and when you're thinking about a name, go for something that creates the vibes that you like or that match your personality and your style of crochet. I picked Sunny Stitchworks because it's happy, it's vibrant, and also it didn't back me into a corner by putting the word crochet or my name in there. So that's a whole nother topic, but I just didn't want to back myself into a corner with crochet. I wanted it to be crochet related and not necessarily to have my name in it. And I live in Florida, so I thought sunny. Sunny sounds perfect. And secondly, you're going to want to think about your fonts and your colors. Same concept. What is the vibe you want to get across? What matches your style? I liked yellows and greens because it matched sunny and the cute little frog in my logo, which frog is also crochet related. But your fonts, you're going to want to stick to 2 different style fonts to kind of mix into all of your social media posts, your photos, if you're adding text to those, your listings, stuff on your website if you have a website yet already. And thirdly, just consider where you are going to post. So we'll get into that in tip number 4. Build your audience while you build your business. A common mistake I see beginners make, which I was also guilty of, is thinking that you need hundreds and thousands of followers before you can really start your business. It's actually the opposite. What you really want to do is build your audience while you grow your business. And that's the best way to do it. So you're actually making progress in your business and gaining followers at the same time. So you're going to be making posts on social media. I do suggest, starting that from the beginning and sticking to 2 social media accounts or platforms. You can pick Facebook and TikTok. You can do Instagram and Pinterest. I only suggest doing 1 to 2 at the max because what you're going to do is you're going to overwhelm yourself very quickly. And it doesn't seem like it's a lot to create that kind of content that you can repurpose it, but it doesn't always work out that great. And you're going to be burnt out very quickly. So I suggest starting with the ones you're most familiar with or the ones that you find yourself using the most often. I would personally probably start with Facebook and Pinterest because I tend to use those most often and I'm used to the way they're laid out and their formats. But, do start to post. It doesn't matter if anybody sees it right off because eventually you're going to get to the point where you've got friends that are going to follow you, you've got family that are going to follow you and see your posts. And then other people will start doing that if you use hashtags and other things related to your platform. to get other eyes on your work. And eventually, the right people will find your work and they will be interested in it. So just keep that in mind. Don't overwhelm yourself, but do strategically choose a couple platforms and start strategically growing your audience. Tip number 5, understand the basics of pricing and profit. The biggest P word of them all. So it almost sounds like a dirty word sometimes because we may be doing something that we love, but at the end of the day, if we're really serious about starting a business, profit is the bottom line. Haha. This is something that a lot of people get into where, let's say you start making your first physical items to sell or your first patterns to sell, and you've seen some similar listings on Etsy and they're a little bit less than yours. So you're afraid that nobody's going to buy your item because your price might be a little higher. My recommendation is to not try and undercut yourself. You know the amount of time and effort you put into creating that item. Other people might not, but I consider thinking about your hours spent and use that more often than you would use your material costs. There's ways of embedding your material costs into the pricing of items, which will be another video topic coming up soon because it's worth an entire video. But, do actually do some research. Look for similar sized items, similar style items of whatever you're selling, whether that be physical or digital. Look them up on Etsy, look them up on Facebook Marketplace, look them up wherever you think they're going to be, and do some research and see what maybe is the average of what other people are selling them for. And try to be similar, but do not undercut yourself and try to be the cheapest one out there. This is not a race to the bottom. And other than that, your hourly is very important. So if something took you 3 hours to make, and think about how much you want to make per hour. Do you want to make $15 an hour? So that's $45. Is that item to you seem like it is worth $45, or should you be charging more? Take all those things into consideration and just be kind to yourself, and the right people will find your product and they will buy it. And the same thing goes for patterns. Find patterns that are of similar things and see what they're priced like. And also, there's a little more consideration that goes into how difficult is the item to make. Is it super complicated with a lot of little pieces to sew on? Are there super intricate, detailed areas where you're using different combinations of stitches? Or is it a super simple, no-sew, single crochet pattern? And this also goes into consideration when pricing patterns. But at the end of the day, you making a profit is really the most important thing. It's going to want to keep you going in your business and hopefully one day become the most successful business you could have imagined. And I am all here for it. So that was my 5 tips for starting your crochet business. I hope that you found some of this helpful. So my little closing note is that, in all honesty, I find that selling plushies can be very fun, and it's something that you can certainly do. And you can have fun and have a business model with physical items. But do consider maybe learning how to create your own patterns. Even if you are still going to sell your physical items, it just creates a good brand for yourself, and you can scale a lot better that way. And hopefully in the future, maybe have a little more passive income. So I hope this helps. Thanks for hanging out with me. And if you got anything good out of this video, hit like, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.